welcome. Good afternoon. This is Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. And I was really looking forward to this interview because I'm with Paul MUOLO, and we were just talking off camera before we went on air. And Paul, a Rutgers graduate from class of 16, is just kind of all around multi-talented, multifaceted, and so interesting. And I've had a run of really heavy, interviews, and I'm just looking forward to hanging out and spending some time with Paul. Paul graduated in class of B.A. in 2016, and public relations, social media, marketing, media relations, creative copywriting, and just all around. We were just talking about Rutgers football, Rutgers basketball. So,
yep.
Paul, introduce yourself, say hello, and then we're gonna kind of jump into the interview.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Calvin. Like you said, I graduated Rutgers in 2016. Got my BA in strategic public relations, and over the course of my career, I've been in a variety of different industries, but it's been a roller coaster of a ride, but all good things. And love to learn, love to be outdoors, love to listen to music, and just super grateful to be here.
Wonderful. I'm grateful to have you here, truly. We've by the way, I should say that you and I met, guess where, on LinkedIn.
Of course.
and I of course, and it is just this wonderful vehicle, and it's opened up a whole new world for me. And this whole channel, Conversations with Calvin, was born out of my Rutgers connections and LinkedIn, and now Zoom, and there's this confluence. That's a great word, by the way.
That is.
There's this confluence of things coming together. So you've had an interesting journey, Paul. Prior to Rutgers, I think it's Coastal Carolina and Brookdale. Spent some time in Hawaii. So why don't you kind of do a little background?
Yeah. I didn't start my collegiate career at Rutgers. So I started at Coastal Carolina in South Carolina for like a couple semesters, like 1 or 2 semesters, pursuing psychology initially. But, it didn't really work out for me, and my interests kind of shifted while I was there. So I decided to move back and pursue journalism and media studies at Brookdale College. If you're not familiar, Brookdale does have a wonderful study abroad program, and I gravitated towards taking a course for several weeks at the University of Hawaii in Manoa, studying honors cultural anthropology. Right. And that's kind of where I discovered my love for getting out there in the world, traveling, talking to people, and learning about the various different backgrounds and cultures of people in the world and within my circles. So after, going to Brookdale, getting my associates, I transferred to Rutgers, where I finished out the remainder of my kind of collegiate career. And that's where I found my passion for kind of corporate communications and marketing. And it was a really great kind of college experience.
Really great. I mean, as diverse can be. Different schools. I didn't go to Rutgers either to begin with. I started in Ohio and eventually came back to my home state. I always like to ask this question, talking about your Rutgers, experience. By the way, you can talk about it, but you did graduate with really high honors, and also when you're talking about your Rutgers experience, because you're really fresh with this, because you're a recent grad. Talk about elements of diversity and sense of community, and how Rutgers really enhanced your development.
Yeah, absolutely. Once I got to Rutgers, I just realized how great of a community it is and a place for learning. I always like to say, for those who have never been, you're truly kind of in it, if that makes sense. For me, at least, it forces you to step outside your comfort zone, find your own way, find your own opportunity, your passions, your interests. And out of all the wonderful things Rutgers offered me, it was this networking with this truly diverse community that I found the most value in, and kind of helped shape me in my career and who I am as a person today. So you can really like finish out your whole schedule over the course of the day, and by the time you get home or back to your dorm or whatever, you could talk to a different person from a different place, from all over the world. So it was just really like inspiring, and a pleasure to be around all these different people from all these different walks of life, and being around or being a part of such like a diverse community really gave me the chance to hear all these different kind of viewpoints and perceptions about the world, and it was truly critical into shaping me into the person I am. So that's the biggest thing I will say about the Rutgers community, is the diversity and the inclusion that you get when you kind of step on campus. There's nothing like it. So it was tremendous.
Agreed. I forewarned you, a little off topic. I like to just do a cerebral thing. So here's one of two. So here's the scenario. Excluding family and friends, somebody living or dead that you'd like to spend a day with during the pandemic. It's a little cerebral.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And by the way, you can one or two. There's no rules here.
Yeah, I would probably say my grandma. She passed away a couple years back now, and she really had a very black and white, great view on the world. She was, one of 11 children, off the boat from Italy, and she was just a pleasure to be around. So I'd really love her take on this whole situation we're in, because I'm sure it would be, she just always had a way of kind of making you laugh and smile, and she made a mean pasta and sauce. So I'd say if I had to pick one person, it'd be my grandma to hang out with for a day.
Okay. Interesting you said that, because if you had asked me that, and it's funny, I always ask that, but nobody's ever asked me, and I never had to think about it. But when you answered your grandmother, I would have said, I'm looking at his picture of my grandfather, whom I never met. But my relationship with my grandfather is quite extraordinary, even though I never met him. He died in 1937. Mm-hmm. So back to work, and you and I have, of course, we have great commonalities. Most important of which is our alma mater. But you experienced. You were a journalist and you were a writer for New Brunswick Today. So how did that shape you as a person, and actually in the world of corporate communications? And I just wanted to add that the commonality with you and I, as far as New Brunswick Today goes, on my other hat, I wear this all the time, but I do have a hat for NJ Discover, proudly, where I've been a journalist for like 10 years. We had a TV show, and in one of those TV shows we had on Charlie Craneville from New Brunswick Today. So take it away and talk about that experience, Paul.
Totally. Charlie is a great guy. I really enjoyed working underneath him, as he was my editor for a brief while. But yeah, I mean, I spent most of my time on College Ave. So being in the communications and public relations track that I was on, that's where I spent most of my time. So I really, started following all these local newspapers, and I was like, oh, New Brunswick Today, they're covering some really cool stuff. I'm starting to get a passion for writing, for journalism. Let me, let me see what I can do and see if I can, get a role here potentially for my resume. So being a part of that, being in that role really helped me explore the community in greater detail than I was. And it catapulted me into kind of a ton of different environments and scenarios where I could learn more, again, more about the diverse community that I was in. It allowed me to fuel my passion for connecting with others. And I got to cover a lot of cool things, right? So I would cover everything from rock shows, like at punk rock shows at some really cool like underground basements, and even at the Rutgers like student center. I also got to cover some fundraisers for Robert Wood Johnson, and I even co-authored a piece with him on just the Rutgers bus system. And at the time, it really needed some work. So I'm not sure where it stands now, but but yeah. So anyway, I got to really meet a lot of interesting people and write about them and write and tell these really interesting stories. So again, it just really fueled my passions for communications and writing and networking. So it was a really great really
Great
great
place to
experience.
really, yeah. You mentioned Rutgers Bus System. Somewhere in my memory banks, I remember hearing that it's the largest collegiate bus system in the country, something like that.
Really? Oh yeah.
I
I
believe
mean,
they shuttle around more.
I'd buy that. I really would buy that. I mean,
Yeah.
the app was there was actually an app. I'm sure it's come a long way since I graduated, but you could actually track like where the buses were on their
Okay.
route, so you could
Wow.
see if you're going to make it to class on time
Wow.
and when you can get home. Yeah, so it was pretty intuitive. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of vehicles to keep track of. So um, definitely no small feat to get
Correct.
those in organized and working properly.
Correct. Um, Not off topic, but you're
Yeah.
still young. But some of the places, um, some of your favorite places where you visited and traveled to. I mean, even though you're still young, do you have a list?
So yeah, I've been very blessed and very grateful to be able to spend time traveling. So I'd say other than spending my honeymoon in Montego Bay in Jamaica, the next best place I traveled to was New Orleans. And you're talking about someone I'd like to spend time with, either dead or alive. My grandfather would also be on that list,
No.
because he actually owned a restaurant in the Garden District.
Wow.
Yeah, back in the day. So it's just a fun city. It's just rich. It's vibrant. Like there's a ton of music everywhere you go. So it's just everyone's having a really good time. My parents lived there when they were teenagers. Um, and that's kind of like, and my grandpa had the restaurant, so they'd always go over there, grab a bite to eat. But it's just one of those places. It's always resonated with me. It's always had a special place for me. Um, and like I said, the super was the music was really great. So that was a really great time to be able to travel there. What about you?
I well, actually, Italy. Uh,
That's on my bucket list for sure.
the last couple of years, uh, we've been there twice.
Hmm.
Last summer before the pandemic, and the year before that. So I've been to Italy. I had to get to Italy. I've been to Italy years ago when I was working for Luxottica. They took us to their factories. I didn't see the real Italy. I saw the Dolomites. Was nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
The factories were way up in northeast in Italy, near the border. I don't know, it's France or Austria, and the Dolomites. You don't hear a lot about them, but they're magnificent mountains. We were actually there in the winter, so everything was like snow covered.
Wow.
We went to all these small towns in northeast Italy. I wrote about it a little bit, um, having been there. So Italy is uh, the food, the wine. I can. The wine was pure. There was no sulfite, so you can sit and drink all night. And, um, and the food, and of course, I worked. As I mentioned, I worked for the richest Italian in the world. So when he called up a restaurant to take our 16 or 18 managers for dinner, it was the royal treatment. So I saw a really nice side of special side of Italy in the last 2 years that we went there. Just Rome, Sicily. I always wanted to go to Corleone, which does exist, and I did. So
Yeah.
uh, and some of the mountainous. It was very special. So anyway, um,
That's awesome.
and it's a good segue as I mentioned Corleone. Do you have favorite movies?
Um, Favorite movies. I have a lot of favorite movies. I'm trying to think of one. I mean, speaking of favorite, like The Godfather, obviously is up there. But these days, I'd say talk about my favorite show, which is right now has to be The Mandalorian. Um, it's probably the single reason that I have Disney Plus, a Disney Plus subscription.
Huh?
It's just I'm just super into Star Wars. Like I've always been into Star Wars, but then this is just that show has just revitalized my interest, and apparently they're coming out with tons of new like spin-offs, and it's just a really great storyline. It's like action packed, and come on, Baby Yoda is the most adorable thing in the world. So yeah, I would definitely have to go Mandalorian.
Okay, cool. All right, a little serious now, because
Okay.
you're in public relations, and I'm always curious about this. So, what qualities do you think are necessary for somebody as a public relations manager to possess? What qualities do you need for that PR?
Yeah. I'd say, it's really important that people that pursue public relations, whether you're on the agency side or you're working in-house for a brand or a company, first and foremost, you have to be, able to appropriately interact with and communicate with others. So you have to be personable. You have to be open-minded. You have to kind of think on your feet at times. And it's particularly important that you're able to communicate calmly, even in the face of adversity or potentially confrontational situations. Um, Additionally, because you're creating like an image of a company or a person to the public, you need to be able to anticipate things. So creating kind of toolkits, creating talking points,
Hmm.
creating, having your messaging ready to go before anything happens. I always like to say, like, your reputation happens whether you're managing or not. So being very proactive and being very kind of cool in the development of your materials and your messaging really goes a long way. And just kind of the last thing would be you just need to be kind of on your game when it comes to turning around things at the drop of a hat, right? So just the media landscape is changing dramatically as it is, but deadlines can change very frequently. So just being able to be okay with that and be like, okay, just be patient. Just got to get this done. Got to shift priorities. Um, those are the kind of qualities. I mean, at least I feel would be important to possess if that's the career path that you want to kind of pursue.
Interesting. There's a lot to it. The whole public relations and the whole persona. Um, Next, just for example, how would you like tailor how would you tailor a message for a specific target audience?
Yeah, so I mean, research. You need to always start with the target audience before you do anything else. So this includes reviewing information you already have about your audience or audiences, possibly gathering more about whatever group you're trying to reach. So this can include like an analysis of different levels of understanding, looking at things like or asking questions like, what does the target audience already know about the thought leader content or the subject matter you're putting out? Are there any is there any misinformation about the content or the space you're communicating in? How does how does your audience feel about it? And then just looking, like peeling back the layers of who it is you're speaking to, right? So like, how old are they? Where are they geographically kind of located? What are like their main kind of motivators? What do they want
Mm-hmm.
from you, and what do they want to see out of your content? That will help you kind of shape and cater your messaging accordingly,
Okay.
so you're providing the most value to them. And I mean, what I always like to say is, like, it always comes back to your kind of objectives, right? So like, what do you really want to achieve from a brand or a organizational standpoint? Because it varies wherever you go. So I'd say kind of those are the two biggest things. Like, do your research. What is it? Who is it that you're speaking to? And then what are kind of what are your goals? What do you want? What actions do you want them to
Mm-hmm.
take in order to kind of achieve your goals, whatever they may be from a brand standpoint? So there's a lot of layers to
There's
that,
a lot of layers.
but I'd say at a high level that is more or less how I would cater messaging from a corporate communication standpoint. And you have to remember, like, PR is like a targeted approach. So getting your business's message in front of the people, the message that you want them to receive, and through like a clearly defined audience. That's just bring it back to that, right? So that's kind of the main driver of what you're trying to accomplish.
So interesting listening to you. 'Cause you're the modern world, but back 20 years ago when I was at Exotic, I was a regional manager. Um, they were so diligent in giving regional managers courses. So over my time there, I took about 50 courses. I don't know if I mentioned this to you when we chatted off camera,
Yeah.
but I took about 50 courses in sales, because it was a sales organization. Um, in sales, leadership, support. I mean, everything that went into the whole process of selling eyewear. Uh, and it's interesting, Paul, because if somebody said, "What's your takeaway from the 50 courses you took?" and you said it, research. And my main takeaway from the 25 years and 50 courses is, we were taught that before you meet an account to try to sell them eyeglasses, you gotta research and learn everything you can about him, from his favorite drink to his favorite food. And it's funny, there wasn't a lot of resources to find that. There was no Google back in my day. So in other words, when you're putting yourself in front of an account, and you really want to bond with that account, the more you're able to know about that person, and if you're able to weave that knowledge into the course of a presentation or just a conversation, that kind of endears you and helps you bond even better, and
Right.
enhances the relationship. So you reinforce the research is the word you used, which I kind of hung on. Another little off topic. Uh,
Yep.
I like to ask this. to members of your generation.
Okay.
Can you give me? Yeah. And by the way, you can say no. You don't have to answer this. But
No, it's okay.
no, it's. But five. Can you name five things in life you can't live without?
5 things in life I can't live without. I'd have to say my wife, my 2 dogs, um, going to the beach, good food,
That's great.
and I feel like family is part of, like, my wife and family is kind of lumped
Great.
into that. Um, I don't know is that 4? What am I up to?
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. You know what?
Yeah, for me, it's really like I'm very grateful for kind of the it's the little things in life. I'm a very firm believer in that. So as long as my my family has their health and everyone's kind of all good, that's really all I can ask for. So yeah.
Good. So a last question, which actually is really, I underline the word really important to me because we were talking about this off camera.
Yep.
So can you offer, and really important, not only to me, but for a lot of people out there, can you offer any tips to drive social media engagement for companies or brands? I mean, how do you drive social media engagement? That the key word, engagement. How we were talking about that. How the
Yeah.
hell do you engage people?
Yeah. So I'd say for modern brands or today's brands, within anyone with an online presence, really, um, seeing strong social media engagement is a sign that you're making an impact in the market and you're resonating with your audience. So it's not just about kind of looking popular. It's about making meaningful connections with current and future customers, or stakeholders that you want to connect with. So this boosts your brand. It boosts your ROI, and then it just feeds kind of the other marketing channels. So I'd say comments, likes, follows, shares are great. And of course, you want to continue to rack up like followers, but ultimately the greatest measure of social media success is an engaged audience. So like kind of we were talking about off camera, I would rather have 100 super engaged and in tune and quality followers on my LinkedIn or other kind of channels than 500 folks that will never take an action, that really don't care what I have to say, that really don't want anything to do with me, right? So if you think about it like that, it's really a quality over quantity game. You kind of set those expectations from the jump, from the start. So I'd say once you have that benchmark, or once you have that starting point, so you can understand like what success looks like, there are a kind of a couple ways you can drive social media engagement. So number one would be just creating and sharing valuable content. So this is like, your show is a prime example. You share the real authentic stories of Rutgers alumni, so that, we can all connect with one another. I've connected with several alumni that have been on your show,
Great.
that as a result of just us connecting. So you're really providing that value there, right? So content that is helpful to your audience, that addresses their needs and pain points, is critical. And you want to think conversation. You don't want to think broadcast, right? So it's not about talking at them. It's about talking with them and having a conversation. So, that is kind of the main driver of thought leadership and creating meaningful connections. Another kind of tip or tidbit, I guess you'd say, is like staying topical and trendy, right? So like if you're not sure what to really post or put out there or chat about, just join a conversation that's already happening, right? Comment on current events and trends if it makes sense for your audience and for your brand, of course. And remember, you're always tying it back to what it is you want to achieve. But yeah, just hopping on those conversations and tying in your commentary to that, to those trends can go a long way. And I would also make the case, or make the suggestion rather, that like prior to the year, if you really want to do this, you create like an editorial calendar. So in advance of the coming year, so you know like what, you know, special months are coming, what holidays are coming, when there's certain things related to your market and your target audience that you really are going to want to comment on. You don't want to miss that opportunity. Get that stuff ready in advance and ready to go, so it's no surprise when it kind of comes around. You can join in the conversation, right? And then kind of the final thing I would say that I've seen people lose sight of, and I myself have also lost sight of, is to be human. Really, like at the end of the day, we're all human, and people want to see that there is someone behind the logo, right? That is a person, and they have feelings and emotions. So people are much more likely to engage when you show them there is a human being behind the logo. Some kind of tactics for personalizing your message to show that humanity could be, you know, going beyond resharing or retweeting, but like providing, you know, commenting and actually sharing your meaningful opinion. Acknowledge and answer questions, right? So that comes back to the broadcast versus conversation type of thing. We're always going to want to be conversing. We don't want to be broadcasting. Respond to comments, always respond to messages, DMs. It seems tedious, but it goes a long way. And there's nothing wrong with being humorous, or, you know, making a joke, or being warm and genuine when you're responding to folks. So, you know, just showing that, you know, putting your own personal touch on things. And then the other thing is just kind of, you know, as far when you talk about responsiveness in social media, just kind of be speedy about it. Just, you know, it's okay if you don't respond right away, but within a couple hours or so, people should be expecting a response. And that way, every time in the future, when they comment on something, they know that, you know, you're hearing them and you're going to be getting back to them. And, you know, those little things really go a long way when it comes to like humanizing your brand. So those are a couple examples.
What I'm saying, wow, because what you said is so, it's so right on. It is a wow, and we're talking on air here. This is better suited off air, but when you said to be human, you know, my brand is this hat. I've been wearing this hat for 10 years, and that's my brand. I'm proud of my alma mater. I love wearing the hat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll fess up to you. I wear the hat primarily because I hate brushing my hair. So I throw it on in the morning. I haven't used a hairbrush in years.
Oh, there you go. You're doing it right, my man.
So, but I wanted to test the waters. LinkedIn's pretty professional, and I have a brand, and you know, I am who I am, and so back on Father's Day, I wanted to test the waters, and I found an old picture of my father and me. I wish people, you know, happy Father's Day, but I found a couple of pictures of my father and me. I'm looking at it right now as I'm talking to you, and we're on the beach. By the way, you love the beach. We're on the beach in Belmar. It's 1948. It's 3 years after the war. And I took that picture, and I also took a picture of my son and me also on the beach in Belmar, you know, 40, 50 years later. And it was a happy, but anyway, I threw that up on LinkedIn with the caption, you know, Happy Father's Day.
Yep.
And I was blown away by the number of impressions that it got, which is exactly what you just said, Paul, to be human.
Right. I always say, try to think of something that will either make people laugh or cry or just, be happy. You know what I mean? Like if it's evoking an emotional kind of response, then chances are you have a winner, a good, a strong piece of content that can, reach a lot of people.
Just great advice. And we've come to the end of this segment, which means the way I've worded it is love you to come back, talk more about the stuff you do and the public relations and this. I'm here all the time and would love to have you come back and we can content and talk more about this because the stuff you do, it's a brave new world and it's evolving quicker than we can ever imagine. So the stuff you said is so right on and spot on. I can't thank you and LinkedIn enough for having made the introduction. And we're brothers. We're part of the Rutgers family, the community that, and I truly thank you so much, Paul.
Oh, Calvin, it's my pleasure. I'm really thankful you reached out to me. I'm happy to chat about this stuff anytime. I love this stuff, and I'm really happy to connect with you. And thank you so much for having me on your show.
And it's my pleasure. And best way to say goodbye is to be continued. We'll do more. We're going to stay in touch. We'll do more. You'll see me in pictures on LinkedIn wearing my hat, and I'll see you. And again, thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you so much, Calvin.
All
Happy
right.
holidays.
Yes, you be well.